Hello and welcome to the Save the Punter Betting Show, the programme where we do the research for you so you don't have to. Every week we preview the biggest English football games and advise you of where we think there's value to be had to make your sports betting life a little easier. Hello everyone, I'm your host Parris. If you're joining on www.savethepunter.com, thanks for watching. If you're consuming via iTunes or Spotify, thanks for listening. Whichever medium you're joining us on, it's the final game week of the delayed Premier League season and there's plenty to play for. So to try and pick apart the important and not so important games, we've got the Premier League of bettors. Or are they? Maybe you can decide that after the show. I'm joined by our special guest, Nigel Seeley, who made his debut a fortnight ago and banged in a hat-trick of tips from 5 bets. Welcome back, Nigel.
The Alan Shearer debut. Scored a hat-trick, one with the head, one with the left foot, one with the right foot. Lovely to be back. The pressure's on though, Parris. That's the trouble.
It is.
When you have a good... It's like when anyone asks me to make them a cup of tea, I always intentionally make it absolutely horrid. So I never get asked again to make a cup of tea because I just can't bear making a cup of tea for anybody. So, but I've gone the other way here. I've come on and done a hat-trick and now I've got the pressure on me to deliver. So hopefully last day of the season, always a very difficult card. You know, lots of shock results do happen and, you know, tread carefully last week of the season. But hopefully I'll be able to add to that hat-trick of wins with another few for the weekend.
I'm sure the listeners will be delighted to hear that. And of course, no Save the Punter podcast complete without our reliable Alpine friend. Think an Austrian Mark Noble, but with legs that are still in full working order. Pete, hello, how are you?
Yeah, good. Good to be back. Let's get into it.
So, gents, let's start maybe with the betting highlights and lowlights from the last week or so. Nigel, you're up first.
I mean, the highlight for me was Aston Villa probably beating Arsenal. You know, back them at 11-4. And then I thought, obviously, when they were psychologically needed a win to get out the bottom 3, I thought that was a huge plus for them. And they went on and won the 1-0 game. And Leeds, I think, again, I last time I spoke to you, I was glowing about Leeds. I thought the performance again, when they beat Charlton yesterday 4-0, was a phenomenal performance from a fantastic football side. I mean, they're top of every single stat in the Championship. Going to do well in the Premier League next season. I don't think they're going to be struggling at all. And they showed that they had no lack of any not trying in that game. And they dismissed the early price of 4-5 and went off as 4-9 with some bookies. I was very happy to say I got a bit of the 4-5. So that was my highlight. Low light, AC Milan playing Sassuolo in Italy, all over over 2.5 goals for quite a big bet. 2-1 at half time, counting the money. Over 3.5 goals, sorry. 2-1 at half time. Referee sends someone off 1 minute before the half time. AC Milan shut the shop completely against 10-man Sassuolo, and we don't get the money. So that was my betting low light, which happened on the same night as the Villa game. It just shows you it swings and roundabouts in this business. You know, you could be fantastic one week and useless the next, and that's what happened on one night.
Yeah. What about you, Pete? Any big swings? What are your highlights or lowlights?
Nothing big. Maybe even West Ham against Man U. I was worried, wasn't sure what West Ham would turn up, but we got the good West Ham. Got that in the plus 1.75. Things maybe looking good. And then the low light, probably Leicester. Thought they could do it against Tottenham, but it was a Harry Kane and Hugo Lloris masterclass. Got the 3-0 win, which was disappointing, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah. I think I was saying on last podcast about a few losers in a row and how do you deal with them. I mean, complete swing. Since the last podcast, I've probably had one of the best runs of my life, and mainly through greyhounds, actually. There's a guy I went to school with who we weren't in the same year, and we weren't even friends till after we'd both left school, but he's been betting greyhounds for a while. I've been tracking him. His ROI is incredible, probably above 50%. Even to Betfair starting price, it's still double digit. It's above 10%. But the problem is he's never really sent me much volume because he can't get on himself. So he's doing all this analysis, but it's not worthwhile for him to keep putting the time in. And I convinced him, I said, look, you've got a skill here. You're trustworthy. you're reliable, you understand value, you understand greyhounds, you've got a lot of contacts in the game. Why don't you set up your own tipping service? And I've been on him for ages to do it. He finally started yesterday, and he banged in a 9-2 winner in the first tip he sent. I think I've WhatsApped it to you, Nigel. You might have
I
gone
didn't
to bed
back
by
it.
then.
Well, I'm a lot older than you, so I'm a cup of Horlicks and a faster keep after Coronation Street for me. So no, I saw you send the message from me. I didn't get it, but fair play. I actually own a dog, Parris. I don't know if you know that. I bought it about 6 months ago now, but it's running. It comes second in its last run on I think Monday we ran last time. It runs at Monmore. It's called Up to You, because everyone asked me whether they should bet it, and I always say it's up to you. So I called it Up to You, and it's running. It'll be running probably next week. It's a wide runner. Runs out of trap 6 or trap 5. If it's in trap 6, it'll win. Next time out, it's right ready for a big price. Up to you. It'll run in around about an A7 or an A7, A6 race. But she started off really, really well and won a couple of races. But she's been in season, and she's out of season now, and she's ready. So the next time she runs, Up to You. Tell your greyhound mates not to tip it, because I want to get on.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a big following. So the good thing is, at the moment, the prices don't crash. So if there is anyone listening who likes betting on greyhounds, wants to know more, just send us a DM on Twitter at Save the Punter. I very rarely recommend any paid for services, but he's one I would recommend. Like I said, I've known him for a number of years, went to the same school, very trustworthy, and I'd advise you, if you bet on greyhounds, to get in while he doesn't have a lot of members.
Do you know what? I'm quite staggered, Parris. I'm quite staggered that someone from your boarding school, is massively into greyhound racing. It doesn't seem to be the same fit, does it, Pete? Someone who Charlie Charles, who was in the next room to Parris, is now suddenly well into dogs down at Monmore and Crayford. Doesn't seem to be the right fit. I thought you might be setting up a lacrosse or fencing paid for tipping service, Parris.
So let's move on from America's greatest sporting export to England's, the Premier League. Sunday, 4 p.m. After 37 games in a season that started almost 12 months ago, only 1 point separates Manchester United, Chelsea and Leicester. 3 does not go into 2, and we'll find out over the next 30 minutes or so which our duo, think will join Liverpool and Manchester City in the Champions League. And with only 5th and 6th guaranteed Europa League football, Wolves could inexplicably miss out on European adventures next season if Spurs better their result and leapfrog them at the last. And then at the wrong end of the table, which is where we're going to start, Aston Villa are now outside the relegation zone for the first time in 10 weeks or so. They've got a real hope of staying up. It's in their hands. Or will Hayden Mullins mastermind a Watford victory against an Arsenal side with potentially one eye on the FA Cup final? And of course, you've got Bournemouth, who could still stay up with a win if the other two lose, goal difference permutations permitting. So, Pete, let's start with you. I know you like a bet in the West Ham Villa game.
Yeah, I'm willing to take a chance on West Ham here. A big price, 3.32. I know Villa, I've got everything on the line. Huge game for Villa, obviously. But I'm still not sure they can score goals. Since the restart, they've scored 6 goals. 5 of them have been from set pieces. So I'm not sure how often they can keep that going. You look, when they play in normal play, they don't look like scoring. They've got strikers I don't think they've ever scored in the Premier League, it was saying the other day with Davis and Samatta. They're relying, it seems, on Trezeguet for all the goals. West Ham have been in really good form. They've got 55% expected goal ratio in the last 10 games, and they've been in such good form. I think they'll want to just keep that going for the last game of the season, finish on a high. I'm not sure, they probably won't be 100% at it, but they're not just going to sort of give up and not really play. I think we'll see a good performance from them. And if it was a normal game, I'd have them odds on against Villa. So I think a 3.32, it's a big price. I think it's worth half a point bet.
Okay. Nigel, any thoughts there?
I couldn't disagree. I think what's the bearing of what's happening at the Emirates is going to have a big impact in this game, hugely. I mean, as we saw last night in the Championship, Swansea knew. But people always say to you, "Oh, do you reckon that the teams will know if other goals are going in?" You're telling me them Swansea players didn't know they needed that fourth goal last night against Nottingham Forest? Absolute load of rubbish. Of course they know. Everyone knows what's going on when they go on a football pitch. You want to know wwhat's happening, and I think that will have a huge effect on this game. If Arsenal are 2-0 up with 25 minutes to go, or 15 minutes to go, the intensity of the Villa performance pretty much drops. So pre-match, I get it. I get the angle of it. But if Villa know they're safe, then really, if Watford are losing 3-0, then the Villa will just go through the motions, and we could see anything happen. And I think that's the real big problem when you're betting on final days of the season with things which games that have a big impact on not the game you're betting on. And that's why this week I've concentrated a lot of the games when outside influences don't affect that. And I think that's really, really careful to have, just bear that in mind. Totally agree with Pete's pre-match analysis. Yeah, they are the wrong price. But we all know why they're the wrong price, because there's this need to win philosophy that people have at this time of season. But I would tread very cautious. It may be a bet that I would have in play, or I'd definitely be looking at the angles in play with what's going on at the Emirates. If Watford are 1 or 2-0, if Watford are 1-0 up, then Villa will just go all out, and then the goals could go up. Anything can happen. But I think outside influences after the game are very careful last of the season. So yeah, I agree with it pre-match, but I would just tread very carefully.
Pete, is that some of the reasons Nigel's outlining around the uncertainty of motivation, what's happening elsewhere? Is that why you've gone half a point rather than a full point?
Yeah, a bit, because you can never be sure, especially West Ham now. Even in the last game against Man U, everyone knew they weren't going to go down. They weren't mathematically safe, so they were still playing. As soon as now they're safe, it could drop off. They could just not really play. So that's part of it as well. And then what Nigel's saying, you're never sure what could happen. But also, it's a 3.32. Yeah, just I think half a point is more than enough.
Okay.
I mean, just going back to that point, Parris, Man City would have never won the Premier League title with Aguero's famous last goal if QPR didn't know they were up. The result happened, and the QPR knew they were up. There was 5 minutes injury time when they scored. They dropped the intensity. If they needed to get a point in that game to survive on the last day of the season, I think Manchester United would have been crowned champions. So it is a big, big factor. I mean, I've seen so many freaky results and so many things that happen with things happen over the years at other grounds. So just I think it's a big, big match, a big part of the final weekend fixtures. So I'm keeping everything very cautious, and it's really an in-play afternoon for me.
Well, speaking of what's going on in other games then, at the Emirates, Arsenal are even money to beat Watford. Watford a bit under 3-1. I think the draw is 3-1. Arsenal, obviously they got one eye on the FA Cup final. It'd be fantastic for Arteta to get his first trophy since joining the club in his first season. Obviously it comes with European qualification as well, which I'm not sure they're as bothered about as winning the trophy, given that they've played plenty of Champions League football in the last 10, 15 years. So Europa League's a bit of a drop down. You could suggest they were slightly unlucky against Villa. Their performance was poor given the quality of players they have. But if you look at expected goals, it was a very even game. What are your thoughts here, Nigel? Are they value at even money?
I think they possibly are value at even money. I'd have a small interest on them. I tipped Aston Villa up on Tuesday night now. And the reason why I did it was because I didn't think that the bookies really took much into account of the prices. Villa were 11-4 at the early prices to win that game. What price would a Villa have been to win that game 6 weeks ago? They wouldn't have been much far off 11-4, I don't think. I think Arsenal probably would have been a touch of odds on, which they were, and I don't really think they really looked too much into the nature of the game. On this match, they've looked far too much into the nature of the game. Arsenal would have been, what price would have Arsenal been to beat Watford 6 weeks ago? 4-9, maybe?
Yeah, well, Nigel, Arsenal have won, I think, 17 of their last 20 home games against bottom six clubs. And the bookies know that. So you're right, they always price them very short in these matchups. Yeah,
well, and now they're even money to win it. I mean, I would love Watford to go down, really, purely and simply for how the owners have treated the manager. I think it was disgraceful what they did to Nigel Pearson. And now they've got Hayden Mullins in charge. Well, on the performance against Manchester City, I'd rather Willie Mullins in charge of the team rather than Hayden Mullins. But the reality of it is that they were a bad side. they concede goals. They don't. If Troy Deeney doesn't look really as much interested, he may be looking for a move away. Potentially he could move to another club, sort of like a Villa, maybe even someone like that. He's a Brummy boy. He might want to go to Villa. But I just think that Watford are doomed, and I think they deserve to be doomed for what they've done. Arsenal, let's look at the positives. They've got an FA Cup final, okay, but they've got a big enough squad to make 6 or 7 changes and bring in better players than what they've got at Watford. They've got some very, very talented youngsters who need game time. They'll give them game time. And people will be playing for a place for the FA Cup final.
Yeah.
So that's a huge incentive for someone to try and get a play at Wembley. I know there's no fans, but it's still an FA Cup final. And the other thing, I think, Aubameyang is only 2 goals behind Jamie Vardy in the race for the top Premier League goal scorer. And Vardy faces a tough ask against Manchester United. And with Aubameyang thinking maybe I could catch him with a couple of goals here against a Watford side that are conceding goals for fun, I think evens. I think that evens might have gone. I looked around this morning to see if I could get a bit of evens, but it touched odds on. If it drifts back to any even money on the exchange, or you can get even money of anyone, I'd be betting Arsenal definitely.
Yeah, I think even money you can get on the exchanges, you're talking just below 1.95 at Betfair and BetVictor and Unibet at the moment. Pete, any thoughts on this game?
Not really. I wouldn't really be backing Arsenal. I'm not sure they're the sort of team you can trust in this situation. And I think I've been a bit higher on Watford than most people. But yeah, I'm not sure why you would sack a manager with 2 games to go, give the new guy 1 day's preparation for a game against City, and now here. I don't really know what to expect from Watford at all. If I had to back a team, I probably would back Watford just because they need it more than the outsiders, but not really any strong feelings.
Yeah, I just, if I look at the prices across the card, I can't be having that Chelsea are more likely to beat Wolves than Arsenal are to beat Watford. So Arsenal around even money, Chelsea are 10 to 11, 1.91. Let's talk about that game briefly. I know neither of you have bets you want to suggest for that game, but Nigel, do you think who do you think is the most likely victor?
This is the Chelsea game.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be. Most games at the end of the season are quite entertaining, high-scoring games. We saw Chelsea last night. We were playing a brilliant game against Liverpool, and the fact that they've played such a high-intensity game in a short period of time with Wolves with a little bit of extra rest is a factor for me. I think it's a very difficult one to call. Chelsea got the FA Cup final, and like you say, I think the point that you've made there is a valid one. Chelsea have an FA Cup final in a week's time, and Arsenal have an FA Cup final in a week's time, and they're both even money. And one team are at home to Wolves, and one team are at home to Watford. I know which one I want to be backing. This one, nothing would surprise me, Parris. And I hate to really sit on the fence on matches. That's not really what I like to do. But on this occasion, I've got to pass. I just got no opinion either way whatsoever. But I would probably, if I was looking for an angle, I think it might be a very cautious first 45 minutes. Wolves games are always very close after 45 minutes, and they do a lot of the action in the second half. So maybe a draw at half time. In probably a nervy, tight first half, and it opens up in the second half. So, yeah, that would probably be the only way that I would be looking to play. But on the match itself, I've got no opinion whatsoever.
Yeah, you can get odds against about 2.2 on the draw at half time. Pete, who do you think is going to win?
I think Chelsea are going to win. I agree with what Nigel said about the first half. I think Wolves especially, I'm still not sure they've got it in them to play this open, attacking game. But as you said about Wolves might need to win if Tottenham win, whereas Chelsea only need a draw, that could play into Chelsea's hands the longer the game goes on. Wolves, they come out to attack. It's not really the way that they play. And Chelsea are actually a good counter-attacking side. They could make it almost like an away game, and that would suit them. I think Kepa may be left on the bench for this game. There's only this game and the FA Cup to go. So he obviously played Willie in the FA Cup game. I think now he might just go back to him. Because I think the players, there was one point in the game yesterday where about 9 Chelsea players were looking at Kepa like, what are you doing? So I think the players might have lost faith in him there. And I think it would make sense to bring in Willie. And I think Chelsea will get the job done.
Yeah, I think on your point on Kepa, I know we spoke about this earlier in the week. He's got the lowest save percentage in the Premier League. So if you look at when teams concede shots on target, what percentage are saved? He saves just over half, which is the worst. I think the best is Arsenal's keepers are about 75%, and Hugo Lloris and Dean Henderson not far behind them. But Kepa has made lots of mistakes. I think if I had to pick here, I'd be on Wolves. I think they're too big. They're 10-3 and they're still on the drift now. Only 3 points separates the teams. They've got the same goal difference of plus 13. There's less home advantage than there normally would be. But even if you do think home advantage is a thing, Wolves are still 7-7-4 away. They've won 7, drawn 7 and lost only 4, which is the 5th best away record in the league. I think Chelsea are about the 6th best home team in the league. Wolves players all know what's expected of them. They got very regular and reliable start 11. And even recently, they've incorporated some of their new players to good effect in that, like Daniel Podence, who looked very good in the last couple of games. I think at the price, I've got to bet on Wolves. I think there's not a lot of difference between the teams. I think if you look at the expected goal metrics, it has Chelsea with an expected goal difference of plus 30 this season. Wolves is only plus 17. So there's a big difference there in terms of quality of the chances created. It just looks like because Wolves have someone that's a great finisher like Jimenez, that they're scoring those chances, whereas Chelsea have Abraham and Giroud. Neither are complete natural goal scorers, although
it's
both good strikers.
It's more the goalkeeper in that one.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's the thing about Chelsea. It's difficult to analyse when the goalkeeper just doesn't ever make any sort of good saves. So that's why it's difficult. But I think William will come in. So yeah, I think I did looked more into it yesterday. And if there was one team that was a bit of value, I made the prices almost right. But I think Wolves were just the value if you had to make a bet. But for me, it'd be no bet.
Okay. So we've talked about the games that really matter. How about some not so important games? Because some teams do have nothing to play for whatsoever, but that could create an opportunity in the prices. Nigel, I think you wanted to talk about the Burnley game.
Yeah, I mean, Burnley have been my go-to team for the last 2 or 3 seasons, and especially in games like this. I mean, they've always been a side that I've always wanted on my side because they're always underpriced by the bookies, always. They don't get the credit what they do up there. Sean Dyche is a fantastic manager who's got a side that we all know how hard they are to beat. You know, they haven't. I don't think they've lost at home since January the 1st. I think it was New Year's Day. No one relishes a trip to Burnley, and you know, with a lot of teams now having to go on a coach and you know, on the day of the game rather than fly. Or I know that was at the start of the return. I don't know if that's. I'm sure the team's gone on coaches rather than that. It's a long old trip from Brighton to Burnley, and then play an hour after you arrive. I think you wouldn't want to be doing that. I think Burnley are a great bet here. I mean, 11-8 with Betfred. They've only lost 1 game since the lockdown against Manchester City. Brighton, the last 2 matches they've played, they've way below what you expect. They were so lucky to beat to draw with Southampton. 0-0 draw against Sheffield United, battered by both Liverpool and Manchester City. So they haven't won in 4. They've been in the relegation battle all season. They're so relieved. They've got their players on social media saying, well, you know, we survive another year. It's as though like their season's done and they can get on a holiday if they can go anywhere. And now that Burnley just keep doing what they do. And Sean Dyche is the manager that I think will want to away from this in this summer. I think there'll be a lot of clubs in that middle section of the Premier League looking for him. I think Crystal Palace potentially may be looking to Roy Hodgson may be under pressure there. And I think Dyche would be a great fit for Crystal Palace. And I can see him moving on. And I think his CV's growing stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think they're so good at the back. They don't concede any goals. Nick Pope is, in my opinion, the best English goalkeeper by some distance currently, possibly just ahead of Henderson. And, you know, I think 11-8 at home to a Brighton side who really, you know, both of them got nothing to play for. But Burnley have probably got more so to play for because they want to Dyche wants them to set that bar and get more money for the Premier League, however high they are on the table. I think 11 to 8 is the wrong price. I like Burnley quite strong in this game, and they're hard to beat.
I think, in fairness, Burnley's XG difference isn't actually that bad. I think they're about 10th in the league on that. They're -2, and Brighton's is -9. So Brighton are actually, on the XG metrics, rated a lot worse. I think it's more around the amount of shots Burnley concede rather than going forward.
Yeah. But the other thing with Burnley, though, Parris, is that they don't concede goals, and the goalkeeper is in the form of his life. And if you look at Brighton, their big problem is scoring goals. 6 of the last 10 games they haven't scored. In that 10 games period, they've only scored 5 goals. So now they go to Burnley with I know it's the last day of the season, and you could probably factor that in, but no, I just can't see how they could be 11.
Yeah, there's a 15, 16 points difference between the two teams. Brighton score only 1 a game. People flag Burnley as a low-scoring team, but they've scored, more than Brighton have this season, 42 compared to 37. So Nigel's going for the home win there. Pete, have you got any bets in some of the games that probably towards the end of the match of the day highlights?
I've got Southampton versus Sheffield United. I'm looking at Southampton to win here at 2.32, price that I was looking at. I think Southampton have shown a real improvement in the second half of the season. I've got them at 7th in my current ratings for the teams, which places more emphasis on the more recent games. Sheffield United have fallen away a bit, 13th. If you look at the last 10 games, expected goal ratio, Southampton 50%, Sheffield United are down at 42%. And they've really been struggling away from home. And I think you talk about that defeat to Everton at home, 1-0, didn't really show much. I think that could be a really tough one to bounce back from. For one game now, they've not really got anything to play for. Southampton, a bit like what I said with West Ham, where they've been informed and they'll want to I think they'll want to just continue that through the season, finish on a high. And like what Nigel said about Aubameyang, I've got Aubameyang 3 behind Vardy, I think. I've got Ings with 2 behind Vardy. That is makeable in this game. So I think Ings will be up for it. The team will be up for it. So 2.32, I think, is a good price.
Yeah, I think Southampton, you mentioned that you're placing recency into your calculations when saying they're the 7th best team. Even you look over the course of the season, I've got them about 7th over the course of the season. And actually, XG difference has them 7th as well. They underperformed at the first half of the season. Maybe as the manager's ideas have got across to the players more, they've started doing better. But I've backed them the last 3 games. I don't see a reason to stop backing them. I was hoping they'd be a bit longer than they are. Goals is another angle here. There's been 3 or more goals in, I think, 8 out of the last 15 Southampton home matches when they've played other teams in the top half. Sheffield United have had more, few goals in some of their games recently as well. So goals would be the other thing I'm looking at.
I like Southampton this game, but instead of backing to winning, I went for a different angle. I've backed Danny Ings to score any time at 6-5 with Bet365. Last time I was on here, I gave you an odds against shot in Mitrovic, and I think Danny Ings at odds against is a crazy price. Banging form, absolutely flying. What's he got? He's got 5. I don't know. He's got 6 goals in his last 8 games, 5 in his last 5. Missed a penalty in that period as well. We'll take penalties. We'll take free kicks. We'll shoot from everywhere, as we saw against Brighton when he smashed one in off the bar. Full of confidence, and it arguably for me probably the player of the season, I would say. For what he's done. Being the Premier League top goal scorer of a club like Southampton, and how they started off so poorly. I think he's been the main catalyst for their goals, as we all know. But odds against the Sheffield United side, who I think have had a really, really, really tough year. They've absolutely done brilliantly at the early part, but since the restart, it's got to them a little bit. And their smallish squad is showing signs of being fragile. And I think Danny Ings here, plus money, 6-5 to score is a great bet. Really, really, really good bet.
he's got 21 in 37 this season. His expected goals is only, I think, 15 and a half, which is basically saying because he's a good finisher, he's putting away chances people don't always think he should. Now, the analysts out there would say, well, okay, he's due a regression to the mean then. He's probably going to stop scoring as many of those chances. But like, I'm with you on this one. I'm a backer of Ings here. From what I've seen of him, he is a very, very good player. And yeah, he's maybe not going to score 20 goals a season every single season. But against Sheffield United, if he gets a chance, I fancy him to put one away.
He's absolutely full of confidence as well, Parris. You play a good sort of standard over the years. When you've got a centre forward who's absolutely full of confidence, you give the ball, it's in the back of the net. You look at.
You've never had one, mate. Our centre forwards are rubbish.
Well, listen, 10 years ago you would have called Seeley. I would have come and helped you out. But the thing is, I was more Mickey Quinn. Carrying a bit of overweight, but over 6 yards, beat everyone. You know what I mean? But my disciplinary record would have been a problem for the Surrey County FA. I would have been paying more. I had to set up direct debit, so that was a big problem I had. But I think the thing is with him, though, is you look at the way he put that goal away. I think it was against Brighton the last game. Just one touch, bang, side foot in the corner. Absolutely full of confidence. If you look at that, that is a player at the top of his game at the moment. He thinks every time he's got a chance, and the players know it. And he takes every free kick, every penalty, every corner they look for him. He peels off the far post. He's making opportunities, and he's absolutely flying. And I think Sheffield United could come a cropper in this game. I think a fantastic season, but I think a fired-up Ings and a fired-up Southampton could end the season on a high. Pete's convinced me to back Southampton as well, and I think Danny Ings to score is a cracking bet. I mean, there's no way in a million years he'll start at 6-5 on Sunday. That'll be 10 or 11 before the 5. I bet my life on it.
So we've got some winners. Southampton. I've gone for Wolves. We've got Burnley as well. We're looking at backing Arsenal potentially. West Ham. We've got an anytime goal scorer. The other thing I wanted to look at was based on feedback from listeners. They like hearing a couple of correct scores. And what I've also noticed is Colossus bets. They do pick a few games, pick a few correct scores. They're not like a traditional bookmaker, so we're kind of happy to support them and see what they're about. They've got a correct score pool on Chelsea, Wolves, Leicester, United, and Fiorentina, Roma, oddly. So maybe we'll have a go on that and set a ticket up for that so people can join in. I think it's £2 a line. What do you guys fancy for a correct score in Chelsea v Wolves?
They could have made that easier than 3, couldn't they? Wolves, Chelsea, I'll go for 1-1.
Pete?
I would go for 2-1 to Chelsea.
So I think that the way these things work, we can pick quite a few scores for each game. So it's like 4 or 5 potential scores. Nigel, so you can see a draw. Could you see a goalless draw or only a 1-1 or a 2-2?
If it wasn't the last day of the season, I'd go 0-0. But because it's the last day of the season, I'd put up a 1-1 draw. Lampard doesn't want to lose his last day of the season. He's got, despite the FA Cup, Wolves, brilliant season. They just hope for the other results. I think I've got, it's been built up as a massive game, but I've got absolutely little to no interest in that game whatsoever. 1-1 draw. And
you're thinking a tight Chelsea victory, Pete?
Yeah, I think the ones I was looking at, I think 1-1 was in play, 2-1, 3-1 to Chelsea. For a Wolves win, I thought maybe 2-0. Because I think if they're 1-0 up with like 10 minutes to go, Chelsea will be putting it all in for a goal. Wolves could nick one. But these are the hardest games to predict correct score.
So Leicester United, I think I'm going to go for a 2-1 to United.
I'm going to go for the Desmond 2-2.
2-2. Pete?
I like 2-1 to Man U, but I still... Maybe 2-1 Leicester. I think 2-1s, 1-alls, 2-alls are quite good in this game. It's going to be tight, I think.
Yeah, I think... So they do horse racing as well, and I think their place 6 markets paid a bigger dividend than the play spot across 70% of meetings over the last 2 years. So it's attractive from that point of view. They've got a cash-out feature there as well, which I know punters will love. It's the first.
They do greyhounds as well, Parris. They do greyhounds.
They do greyhounds as well. Okay. and it's the first time I'm properly getting involved in their football syndicates. But we're gonna set one up. We'll send out the link afterwards. If you use the referral code Save the Punter, it will get us something and you something. I'm not sure what, whether it's 10% off your first ticket or what. But www.colossusbets.com. We'll send out a link to what our ticket is, and if you use the code Save the Punter, that'll help us and help you. Before we go, gents, any other thoughts for the football calendar on Sunday?
I've got two other quick ones. I'm going to go over 2.5 goals, Bournemouth v Everton, or Everton v Bournemouth. This game just notoriously high scoring. 6-3, I think it was a few years ago, wasn't it? The Bournemouth, a famous game, 4 goals in the last 5 minutes of the game. It was 3-1 early in the season to Bournemouth. Bournemouth only know one way of playing under Eddie Howe's attacking style of play. They've got to go all out for it. And Everton have been a lot, they've been quite defensive really since the return. But I think this opens up a little bit for a decent game here. So over 2.5, which William Hill's were 4-6. If you like odds on, that's a decent bet. I can't see that being 4-6. And I'm going to throw a real obscure one here. I know you like your big price one, so I backed Newcastle last night 9-1 to beat Liverpool, and I like them plus 1.5 as well at even money. Newcastle, obviously, we all know probably club's going to be sold next season. New manager coming in, probably a lot of money. A lot of players really want to play for their places. There could be a massive clear out at Newcastle. And Liverpool, despite winning 5-3, showing some signs of fragile defensively, dropped points against Burnley, got beaten by Chelsea, beaten by Arsenal. Sorry, beaten by Arsenal. And I don't think, I think it's worth having a go last of the season, 9-1 on Newcastle to beat Liverpool for a very small amount.
Yeah, so just on the Everton-Bournemouth one, I think Everton games average 2.6 goals per game this season. Bournemouth games average 2.7. Bournemouth absolutely have to go for a win to give themselves any chance of staying up. So if the game is a draw after 60 minutes, it's not like they're going to shut up shop. They're going to go for it. They know they need goals. They're much better going forward than they are defensively. As I've alluded to on previous podcasts, Everton's attacking expected goals ratios have improved a lot under Ancelotti. Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, decent players, good for a goal. Maybe not the most regular goal scorers, but yeah, I could see goals in that one. And on Newcastle, yeah, we love a long shot. Newcastle, the team that I dislike the most. I haven't backed them once this season. I don't think I'm going to start now. Pete, what about you? Would you be having a look at a small play on Newcastle?
Yeah, I made them a tiny bit of value if you think about a normal game. So Liverpool, obviously, big celebrations last night. Maybe that is the full time when they stop. I don't mind a little back on Newcastle at all.
Okay. Gents, thanks very much for joining me today. Listeners, viewers, I hope you've enjoyed our analysis and we've picked out some decent winners for you. If you go to savethepunter.com/podcast bets, there'll be a nice, easily digestible list of all the bets we've suggested with a staking plan. If you've enjoyed our analysis today or in previous weeks, please give us a review on the podcast app. That'll help us get up the leaderboard there. Obviously, we've converted to Spotify and iTunes recently. We hope you're enjoying listening.